When I first decided to give this speech, I was writing an article which is due for a magazine for grandparents, magazine, on communicating with kids about gender today. Well, it became a Toastmasters speech. I did make the deadline to give that talk yesterday, called Watch Your Language, especially about sexuality. This way. Do you or your adult children have parental controls on their TV? Because technology has changed the way we communicate. It really has also changed learning a new language every day. When my husband applied for a driver's license just about a month ago, there were three categories to check: male, female, and non-binary. I said, what's that? What's that mean? Well, today's language is going to be about we'll define that later. What pointed here or there? I am confused. And I don't have the time. Is this all right?
Changed.
Okay. So we've all heard the admonition, it's not what you say, but how you say it. Today, because we need to watch not the tone of what we say, not only that, but also the words we use, because there's much confusing about these commonly used labels. When I first started to teach about human sexuality, the proper terms were LGBT. Today it's LGBTQIA. And that should come up. Where do I point it? Yeah, if you'll just do that. Maybe I should use this. Yeah. So what is, which one? Ah! So this will do it. So what does TQIA mean? Well, we're going to break down the terms today in politically correct language. The first thing we have to talk about is gender. That's the biological sex that we were born with, and that's how that's expressed with male or female, masculine. I always give your evaluator things to talk about. So, we get that, male or female. Our sexual identity, however, is the person of the same sex or opposite sex that you want to love and live with. That's homosexual or heterosexual. This gender-bred person talks about a commonly used correct term today, and that's gender fluidity. Because your identity, whether you choose to love or live with men or women, has little to do with how you express yourself as male or female and what organs you were born with. It constantly can change throughout life, and we're going to talk about some of the research on that. And that's the proper term for gender fluidity. Where do we get information about our sexual identity? Kinsey studies in the 1940s and 1950s talked about a scale from 0 heterosexual to 6 completely homosexual, about people's fantasies and behaviors. And we could talk about the limitations of that research that was self-reported, but that's another whole talk. In 2018, a national study of adolescent to adult health that found that among men, 87% identify as straight, meaning heterosexual, and among young women, 74% identified as straight. I have a friend who's involved in the men's movement. He says he calls his gender not straight. A 2017 Gallup poll concluded that 4.5% of adult Americans identified as one of the categories of LGBT, 5% of women, and 3.9% of men. L refers to lesbians, women who are attracted to other women. G refers to gay, and that's the direct tendency to direct sexual desire to people of the same sex. But it's improperly thought of as referring only to male homosexuals, and it's often used pejoratively to write about a range of behaviors. B is an outdated term for persons whose preference can go either way, bisexual, and T refers to transgender, and that's persons who have a gender identity, male or female, that differs from the sex that they were born with at birth. And today, they can undergo hormone replacement therapy, surgery, and actually modify that behavior. You've all probably heard about Caitlyn Jenner. When her interview with Diane Sawyer aired on NBC, it had 4 times the large audience of that show always did. Media stars directly identifying as transgender are Laverne Cox for Orange is the New Black, which was nominated, first one ever nominated for an Emmy. You've heard of movies with LGBTQIA themes, Dallas Buyers Club, Brokeback Mountain, Boys Don't Cry with Hilary Swank. There's not time, or I'd ask you for others. Television with LGBTQIA themes. The new Star Trek on CBS has 2 male doctors who hug and love one another, and clearly it's not PG-13. Transparent was a series about a dad who came out as transgender and his family, and the family accepted him in LA, and they called him Mappa, not Mother or Papa. Q is a term that relates to anyone falling under any of those LGBT categories I just defined. And the community of people that fall under the LGBTQIA wanted to remove the negativity from the word and make it inclusive and use it to say they were proud, to be clear. I refers to intersex, which in the past referred to hermaphrodites, the very few people who were born with sex organs of both male and female. And A refers to asexual, and that's people who choose to avoid sex and have lack of sexual attraction or desire to others or interest in sexual activity. I'm up to red already. Well, how do we watch our language? We should not make assumptions about people's gender identity or sexual attraction. If you're not sure what pronoun to use, ask. Different non-binary people use different pronouns. They prefer they rather than he or she. If you don't know the answer and you get questions from children or anyone, say, I don't know, and let's find the answer together. We must teach the terms how not to use, and such as faggot or dyke or tranny. If you discover children of any age using offensive language, caution them to stop, because people's feelings can be hurt. And we need to tap into our heads and our hearts with compassion, seeking liberation from these labels and rigid definitions. And what's love got to do with it? Everything. We need to communicate with affirmations and acceptance. Thank you.